Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It is Wednesday. Hey, half the week's over. But don't worry, we've got a lot of stories for you guys and gals today, including, of course, Ken Bone. We're going back to the Bone Zone, everybody. You're going to love that story. We've got Stephen Miller, as well as others, getting coronavirus. It's almost as if we were warning people that this would happen. And, they didn't listen, so now they have to face the consequences of their actions. Weird how that works. We also have an investigation into, and this is part of the Horowitz report, actually, or one of them, into child separation and how much people really knew about it. Really fascinating. We're going to talk about that. And then... Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Tulsi Gabbard got into it a little bit, and I'm going to talk about it, and nobody's going to like it. So everybody's going to hate it on both sides. So, great. That's what we're gonna do. I'm going to piss off everyone. Yay! That's what we do here. All right. So that said, let's get into the story here. Oh, before you do, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. It helps us out. Whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, all of that stuff absolutely helps us. By the way, hello Twitch. Getting a nice little small community there, so we're building it. We're building it. Something I wanted to address something, by the way. That I see in the chat. So one person was like, I wish you guys would cover foreign policy a little bit. We're going to work on that. So the reason I don't cover foreign policy a lot is because I don't know much about it. So I don't feel like I could do a good job covering a lot of the foreign policy topics and stuff that's going on in other countries. And so I'm a little wary about that, and I generally, once in a while, will do a story, but I feel like there's a lot more research and there's a lot more reading I need to do in order to be, I think, qualified to talk about foreign policy stuff. This is one reason, among many, that losing Michael Brooks was a huge loss for the left. This guy understood foreign policy. This guy understood how to build a global socialist movement, or at least lay the groundwork. And so there's his reporting on Lula da Silva, what's going on in Brazil, and other countries I mean, it's going to take a lot to get at that point. So I'm going to do what I can, but there's no way I could measure up to Michael. All right, anyway. Let's dive into it. We'll start out with Trump. I'm not sure how many of you pay attention to Twitter, but I'm sure if you do, you know it's the president's favorite medium. It's short, easy to read, great for inflating your ego, great but perfect for somebody like Donald Trump, who can barely read past a page. He's not even a half-pager kind of guy. But as far as that goes, it's not really useful for anything else unless you're the president of the United States, who normally tweets dumb stuff at strange hours, much to the consternation of his staff, I can only imagine. But lately, people have been noticing that Trump, even though he does normally tweet stupid, ridiculous, erratic things, he's outdoing himself. Since he got back from Walter Reed Medical Center, since he quote-unquote beat coronavirus, which, by the way, he didn't, we still need to wait for another at least 5 days, according to his own doctors, to see whether or not he's out of the woods. And so we don't know if he's beaten coronavirus. Look, you've all seen the video where he was not looking good. He was not looking good at all. So that said, I talked about this, that early morning, all caps Twitter storm, where he randomly tweeted his accomplishments. I mean, just random, Space Force, vote. And he's just been going on a rampage. If you've ever checked out his Twitter feed, yes, it's normally insane, but it's even more insane. That's all I'm saying. Which, of course, had Don Jr. and Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner getting a little concerned. I talked about that as well. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail later. And then you also had the immediate order to end the stimulus talks 4 weeks before the election. So, oh boy. Now, let me give you that tweet. He said Nancy Pelosi is asking for $2.4 trillion, which is wrong. She's asking for 2.2. And to bail out poorly run, high-crime Democrat states, money that's in no way related to COVID-19. That's, again, not true. We made a very generous offer of $1.6 trillion. And as usual, she's not negotiating in good faith. I am rejecting and blah, 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 blah. It goes on, right? So basically, he's ending any negotiations on coronavirus relief. Great. That's a smart thing to do. Hold the country and the stimulus hostage unless you win. Because that's also what he says. He's like, well, we're going to not have talks until I win the election. Oh, wonderful. That's a fantastic strategy. Blackmail will surely help you get those votes that you desperately need, Mr. Trump. Now, this came after a tweet regarding how there's actually little risk to overdoing the aid for the economy, which, again, is Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve, strongly urges, and I'll get into that later, how, us to continue, and by us, I guess I mean, like, our government, to continue these talks on a stimulus bill. And he said, true. Well, okay, well, if it's true, then why are you saying we're not going to do any stimulus? I've ended the talks. Then later on, just a couple of hours, he said this. If I am sent a standalone bill for stimulus checks, $1,200, they will go out to our great people immediately. I'm ready to sign right now. Are you listening, Nancy? And then, of course, he tags a bunch of his staff members as well. He's out of control. I mean, conflicting messages more so than even before. It's amazing. And then, of course, like I said, to kind of, backtrack and really put this into, perspective of the timeline, he says no stimulus until we win. And then, turns out immediate stimulus, because probably somebody might have told me that, hey, dumbass, you might want to do a stimulus bill because coronavirus is, one, on people's minds, and the economy is also on people's minds. When you look at some of the polling, where Donald Trump usually does well in the polls is the economy, and he's not even winning that anymore. And so somebody probably pulled him aside and said, dude, what are you doing? No, we need a stimulus. We need it now. Even Mnuchin's like, dude, stimulus. Look at the stock market. It is not doing well. You've got to do something. And so he's got no idea, though. He has no idea. Neither does anyone else. The White House is in absolute chaos. Whoever's still left there that doesn't have coronavirus. And so it's just an absolute mess. It's a disaster. As the New York Times writes, the president's sudden whiplash over the stimulus package followed the widespread backlash to his decision to abruptly end talks with Pelosi, which startled even some congressional Republicans and led to a dip in the stock market, and that's, of course, why the only reason that he cares. Oh, my God, the stock market. Oh, no, it's down? We must do something, and we must do something now. Great. Yeah. Now, the Problem Solvers Caucus, New York Times continues, which is a bipartisan group that proposed $1.5 trillion stimulus package, called for a resumption in negotiations, while Representative John Katko, a person I've never heard of, a Republican from New York, a vulnerable House member in a difficult re-election race, said he disagreed with the president and strongly urged Trump to rethink the decision. Problem is, the man is not thinking. He at this point, he's incapable of thinking. The guy's got coronavirus. And understand that coronavirus can mess with your head. One of the things about COVID-19 is that it can cause cognitive issues in people who are infected. Memory loss, delirium, add to it the medications that he's on, the very strong steroids that can cause mania, euphoria, false feeling of energy. Like it makes you feel energetic when really you're not. And mood swings. There are other things as well. This guy should not be in the driver's seat. He is contradicting himself even worse than usual. He is not well. Even his kids, as I mentioned before, want to stage an intervention. In fact, according to Gabriel Sherman, Vanity Fair, sources told Sherman that Trump Jr. thinks Trump is acting crazy. Even the son's like, dude, no, there's something going wrong with him. He's worse than usual. Like, there is a big, big problem here, and maybe we need to tell him to knock it off. Get some rest. Do some recovery. Do something, because you're acting insane. There's more. Jared and Ivanka kept telling Trump how great he's doing, so they pushed back against that, with Trump Jr. reportedly saying, I'm not going to be the only one to tell him he's acting crazy. While the family appears to be divided over his actions on October 4th, when he did that massive all-caps tweet storm, despite Trump defending them, they seem to be united over their worries over his activity on Twitter, particularly after over a dozen all-caps tweets made early morning. They're all worried. They've tried to get him to stop tweeting, a source told the magazine. And the reason, again, this actually does matter is the president is making unilateral decisions and announcing them on Twitter without telling his staff. That's how staff finds out in a lot of cases. So, yeah, I mean, look, Twitter, I don't have enough Twitter followers, for one. I've only got like 8,000, so it's very sad, right? My Twitter is in need of some love. But even so, Twitter is kind of a hellhole when you think about it. And so maybe it's good that I don't have a lot of followers. But it is unfortunately important because that seems to be one of the bigger ways to keep up with what Donald Trump is doing and saying. So, all right. But anyway, the reason people around him are so concerned about this is, again, look what happens when there's an errant tweet. The stock market will go down. And that's what happened. It took a nosedive because the economy right now is in desperate need. And he made this stupid announcement without checking with anyone else. And then all of his staffers have to go around and go, they're running around their hair on fire saying, yes, that's exactly what Donald Trump meant. But kind of, but we can work on this. I mean, Mnuchin is still saying, let's work out a private airline deal with Nancy Pelosi. In fact, they're meeting to try to get something like that passed to bail out the airlines. So, look, here's the thing. It's not about politics at this point. Okay, there are real people that are suffering. And with Donald Trump being as erratic as he is, and also as petty as he is, shutting it down until after the election, look, there are real people that are suffering here. It's been, 4 months until the CARES Act money ran out, or since? Over 6 months since it was passed? We need an aid bill. We need a stimulus bill. It's really bad out there, and everybody knows it. Again, going back to Jerome Powell here, Federal Reserve Chairman, he said that more stimulus money is necessary and said the recovery has a, quote, long way to go. He added that easing up on relief could lead to a weak recovery, creating unnecessary hardship for households and businesses. By contrast, and this is the tweet that Donald Trump said true. By contrast, the risk of overdoing it seem for now to be smaller. And yet he's not doing it. He also said even if the policy actions ultimately prove to be greater than needed, they will not go to waste. The recovery will be stronger and move faster if monetary policy and fiscal policy continue to work side by side to provide support to the economy until it is clearly out of the woods. And look, we all know that the economy generally is code for the stock market. Even so, if you help the American people, that will also help the stock market. Now, it doesn't generally work in reverse. Helping the stock market doesn't really help regular people. But if you help regular people be able to pay their bills and then also do some spending, that creates consumer confidence, which does help the stock market. So the obvious thing is help the American people. Make sure that people have expanded unemployment benefits. Bring back the $600. Do a UBI. I know this isn't going to happen, but this is what I would want to do. $2,000 or $2,500 a month UBI. Yep, it just went up. Retroactive to the beginning of this pandemic. Guaranteed. All that additional consumer spending that will result from this will help the economy. And yes, will also help the stock market. Is that going to happen? I don't know. Look, right now, it is a disaster. All I know is that things are going to keep getting worse unless we actually address the issue. Right now, nearly half of all Americans are at risk of having their utilities shut off. And millions right now face homelessness. Over 20 million. And while this is happening, Donald Trump's out there tweeting ridiculous stuff like this. Now the radical left Democrats got caught cold in the non-friendly transfer of government. In fact, they spied on my campaign and went for a coup. We are entitled to ask the voters for 4 more. No, you're not. Please remember this when you vote. That's the kind of stuff that he's out there talking about. That's the stuff that's on his mind. All about him, not about the American people. You should probably ask yourself, as a voter, how are you doing during this crisis? Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And some people might say, sure, absolutely. Well, good for you. But there's a lot of people that aren't. Millions of Americans. And the other question is, are you going to trust this man who can't seem to remember what he posted an hour ago because he may or may not have been tripping balls to run this country for another 4 years based on the disaster that we have already found ourselves in the first 4 years? Important questions. All right. Let's go to some karma here. Stephen Miller, Donald Trump's advisor and one of the architects behind some of the cruelest anti-immigrant policies, has tested positive for coronavirus. Wow. Look, it's almost as if Donald Trump is some sort of super spreader infecting the entirety of Washington or something. Now, according to various news outlets, Miller tested positive for coronavirus on Tuesday, the day of the debate, and has been self-isolating for at least the last week. Well, I mean, thank God, right? Especially to the people around him. He is, of course, the latest White House official to test positive for the virus, following several other positive tests, including Donald Trump himself, who has coronavirus. Okay, you've got the White House. Members of the White House are basically systematically being taken down by the virus, one by one, having to self-quarantine because Donald Trump, Hope Hicks, because basically nobody in the White House was wearing masks and doing social distancing. They've decided, no, well, what do we need to do that? No, we're going to use rapid testing. That was their panacea to try to beat coronavirus, and we see how well that turned out. I mean, let me go through some of the staffers. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, a handful of her deputies also got coronavirus. Hope Hicks, Melania Trump, obviously. Ronna McDaniel, head of the GOP. You got Chris Christie, who is both overweight and has asthma, so two comorbidities. Mike Lee, Tom Tillis, the entire Conway family. And then you have, of course, numerous White House staffers. And out of caution, you now have the Joint Chiefs that have gone into isolation. Doesn't mean they have coronavirus. It does mean that they have put themselves into isolation just in case, so they don't spread it around to anyone else. It is out of control. The White House is a literal cluster event. And in fact, it's one of the biggest coronavirus hotspots in the country right now. The White House. Insanity. And of course, for one, it's because the president is a super spreader. And it's very likely that he got it at the Rose Garden event for Amy Coney Barrett. And at that time, afterwards, he knew about it before the debate with Joe Biden. And he was all spreading it around all around that time. He had a positive test, I believe, on Monday at the latest, and then arrived late to the debate, conveniently. Too late to get tested, of course, and they relied on the honor system. Oh, you say you get tested every day? All right, well, go ahead and get it. You know that's not on, accident, right? He already knew he had already received a positive test before the debate. And so arriving late at the debate on Tuesday night and being allowed to do the honor system, you know what's going on here. You know. It's the honor system. What a joke. You think that guy has honor? No. This man has brought dishonor upon his entire house. The house of Trump, dishonorable. He's brought dishonor onto the empires as well. But seriously, though, he knew about coronavirus and he lied about it. I don't know how that is not a scandal. Imagine Hillary Clinton wins the election, right? Or if she had won the election last time, and coronavirus came, and she decided she was going to lie about it, and she gets half her staffers sick, sends the country's military leaders into quarantine to avoid them getting sick. You know what Republicans would do? They would call for her head on a pike. That's what would happen. Look, all of this, what this is, it's karma. And it feels like, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but this is what they were asking for. I mean, well, if it isn't the consequences of your actions, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. This is what happens when you don't wear a mask, don't socially distance, when you laugh off the virus, when you downplay it, even though you know the truth, even though you know that it is a dangerous virus, when he had told Bob Woodward that, this is what happens. They fucked around. Now they're finding out. All right. Moving on here. Let's go to Ken Bone. Speaking of dishonor. But at least I get to use, the phrase bone zone outside of a porn context or a dirty context. All right, anyway. Y'all might remember Ken Bone. Back in 2016, he was an undecided voter. He couldn't make up his mind in the contest between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Well, you're not going to be surprised that this time he is also similarly uncommitted. He said to Newsweek, quote, "To be perfectly honest, I'd say I'm uncommitted again." This is, of course, after supporting Andrew Yang in the Democratic primary. So that's interesting. He said this: very, very few people in either of these election cycles were truly undecided. They're uncommitted, which means you don't really have a positive opinion of either candidate. Well, look, I don't have a positive opinion of either candidate either. But this election, this is between a wannabe fascist and a corporatist. Look, the options are terrible, but that doesn't mean there's not a clear choice in this. I know who I'm voting for. I know who I'm voting against. All right. But apparently, Ken Bone, not sure. But again, what do you expect from the guy who got famous for being uncommitted? That was, of course, until his Reddit profile and some statements he had made before about Trayvon Martin, for example, got him in a little bit of trouble. But again, I guess now that Donald Trump has normalized being a shitty person, here comes Ken Bone. Back in the news. All right. So now he said on Trump, by the way, that he was surprised to see Donald Trump win. He described Trump's time in office so far as, quote, hit and miss with a lot more misses than hits. What exactly did he do right? I mean, there might be one or two things that he attempted to do. I mean, I think the one thing that I can give him credit for is, and it really wasn't him, it was more Kushner than anything, is a little bit of criminal justice reform, a slight bit, and a couple of pardons that were all right. That's about it. Anything else? No. He also gives Trump a lot more credit in saying what Trump really is that a master at his manipulating people via the media. It's crazy how he gets us all to pay attention to what's in his right hand while he's doing his sleight of hand with the other. Okay, let's give one thing straight. Donald Trump is not a master of anything. What he is he is the human equivalent of a Gish Gallop. And alongside with being the dumbest man in America, that's about all he's got going for him. And that's it. Imagine believing that Donald Trump is a master of anything. And I love how there are a certain subset of people, media included, it gives him way too much credit, right? They think, oh, okay, Donald Trump, grand strategy. He's playing, three-dimensional chess here against the Democrats. When really, okay, the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi's over here playing checkers. Donald Trump's flipped over the board, the chessboard, and has shit on it. It's not really equivalent. Okay, it's just not. Nonetheless, I get that in his words, quote, Trump and Biden both suck and don't deserve my support. This was back in September. Why should I declare my allegiance to a candidate who doesn't give a shit about me 2 months before the election? Look, man, I get it. I understand. You're right. Both candidates really couldn't give a shit less about us. I understand that. But voting for somebody doesn't necessarily mean you're declaring your allegiance to that candidate. No, it just means you're giving them a vote, and then you're going to, I would assume, since you give them their vote, you're going to try to hold them accountable in some fashion after the election. You would think. Maybe not everybody looks at that. Maybe. But that said, one of them is actively trying to destroy at least half of the country to own the libs. There is a difference here. You can't honestly look at what's been going on here and think, oh, no, they would do things the exact same. Really? Really? I understand that they're both more conservative than I would like. I am much more progressive than Joe Biden. I am way to the left of him and even further to the left of Donald Trump. But understand, and you would, okay, if you go back and you watch this show during the primary, or if you had watched, you would know how incredibly tough I was on Joe Biden. Okay, I'm Bernie Sanders. I'm a Bernie Sanders Democrat. I believe that Bernie Sanders should have been the nominee. I did not want Joe Biden. But I was wrong about something. I called this 2016 redux. I was wrong about that. I mean, I don't think that it's the same as 2016 at all. Because what it was, and I guess it took a while for me to really kind of, to filter through my brain, okay? That back then, you had an election between the establishment and radical change. And that's why, of course, Bernie Sanders had a great shot at winning the nomination and winning the presidency. And look, if he were running as the Democratic nominee, he would crush Donald Trump, just like pretty much anybody would at this point. Because they gave Donald Trump a chance at radical change. And now, that's not the kind of change that people wanted. Look at it this way. You know the neutral, lawful good, all that stuff, that whole chart? Well, Donald Trump would be chaotic evil. Bernie Sanders, chaotic good. Bernie Sanders just wanted to change things for the better, to actually help regular people, to challenge that system of greed, and to challenge the establishment so that we can get things like Medicare for all, Green New Deal, higher wages, and treat healthcare as it's a human right. Donald Trump, chaotic evil, just wanted to fuck things up, just to fuck things up. Okay, and of course to help to do things that basically would only help himself and his family. Now it sucked that we were denied a chance to get Bernie Sanders to push us forward. Not once, but twice we got screwed over, and I totally understand that. And I understand that you are a lot of people are very, very angry and find it still really difficult to be able to vote for Joe Biden. Totally understand that. That said, I would rather have a Biden presidency that taps the brake on societal collapse than a Trump presidency which will continue to push the gas forward. We have got some serious issues to take care of. Again, climate change. Look, Biden's not going to go super progressive on that. I understand that. But he's also going to bring it back a little bit. Bring down emissions a little bit, which will buy us some time. But again, it is what it is. At least we'll have a little bit more time to try to do what needs to be done. And again, at least we won't have to worry about the president's basically actively killing people for his own ego. Again, coronavirus, over 209,000 people needlessly dead for coronavirus. Many, many of those, thousands of those, tens of thousands, I would say, were, preventable. But Donald Trump wanted to look strong, and that was it. Biden, at least I believe that Biden would not do that. His administration would be at least competent, even if Joe Biden, not necessarily the most competent or well-spoken person, sticks his foot in his mouth, needlessly trashes the left when he's not supposed to, even though he depends on our votes. Come on, Joe. Come on, man. Get it together. Just because you're doing well in the polls right now, you still got to actually reach out to the left. That said, one more quote from Bone, this time about the recent debate. And I actually agree with him a little bit on this. I think we kind of both got what we expected. I expected Trump to be an idiot. Of course. In a way, he said, we almost got what we deserved because we've all played our part in raising the temperature of political discourse. It leads to a couple of people who are probably older than your grandparents yelling at each other and telling each other to shut up and talking over each other like drunk relatives at Thanksgiving. It was insanity. Look, I agree with some of that, but I got to take issue with the fact that you're trying to make it a both sides thing. It's not both sides that we're doing this. Again, I'm not a Biden fan. No, what this was, Donald Trump's fucking unhinged. And it pisses me off when people try to do a both sides on this issue. That's both of their fault. No, it's not. Yes, Biden says dumb things. Biden is not good at getting criticism. He can't handle it very well. But the whole debate basically consisted of Donald Trump being an utter fuckstick and Biden getting pissed off because he didn't know what to do about it. I mean, look, let me ask you. Wouldn't you get pissed off if you had to deal with Donald Trump's garbage? No, Ken Bone, shut the fuck up. All right? One American to the other, shut the fuck up. We know you're doing this for attention. Fine, you got it. Congratulations. All right? And you're probably going to vote for Donald Trump. Because in reality, if you're still undecided at this point, you haven't been impacted by what Donald Trump's been doing. I see leftists, by the way, who used to be never Biden. I see them saying now, since Donald Trump has threatened the fundamentals of this country, saying, look, I used to be never Biden, but dude, I can't just sit by and let this guy win again. He's got to go. He's got to go. I know, because I used to be one of those people as well. And now I'm seeing it all over. I mean, again, congratulations to the establishment. You have finally found a candidate that is so bad to run against that your, hey, we're not as bad as this guy thing actually worked. Well, enjoy your victory, right, when you get Joe Biden into office. But understand, in 2024 and beyond, we're coming for you. And we're going to win. All right. I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back. We've got the Horowitz, another Horowitz report on kids at the border. So kids in cages. And then, yes, Tulsi versus AOC. Stay right here for all that stuff. We'll be back around the nation.
Tighten up my meat. I like my meat tight.
Silent. Tolerate.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, Waldorf Nation. All right, so let's read a couple of super chats before we get back into it. Adrian Benefield says, we are all worse off due to Trump, even if people are making a massive amount of money. Everyone has a chance to catch COVID, even going to a doctor can be dangerous. No, you're absolutely right, but there are people who don't think about others and don't really care. Again, you can just look at what's going on all over states. I mean, look, you've got groups of people that are telling people to burn their masks. You've got prosecutors in Michigan that are saying burn your masks in response to the Supreme Court in Michigan ruling against Whitmer's executive orders, her executive power when it comes to controlling coronavirus. And so, yeah, we have these idiots out there, and they are endangering us all. James Williams, the very generous $5, says Trump isn't playing chess or checkers. He's playing jacks and decided to jump on the pieces with his stimulus tweets. There you go. Could I have an, of course, sound bit from Jank? I could probably get one at some point, yes. Do I have the best sound bites? I don't know. I've got some good ones.
Wet ass P word.
That's one of my favorites. It really is.
Mike Pounds.
Okay, anyway. Hello again to everybody watching on Twitch. By the way, please like and share the stream. I know I got to keep reminding people because it's really, really, really important. And again, it really helps us out. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel too. Let's go over and see if there's any activity on Facebook, by the way. And by the way, I didn't say, like, because there's that hot mic that's like, fuck Facebook. No, I was like, fucking Facebook, because it wouldn't work on my streaming. So actually, he didn't have anything to do with Facebook itself. Oh, you know what? Because it didn't work. Fucking Facebook. Of course. Okay, anyway. Let's move on. There's more stories. Damn it. There's a new report out in the New York Times about how top members of the Trump administration explicitly knew that their policy on the border would separate families. And, of course, they lied about it and didn't actually care that it did so. So this is something that we had assumed for a while, right? We kind of already knew that this was going on, that was the reason behind it. But now this is essentially confirmation. And it actually comes from top attorneys over at the DOJ. They told top Justice Department officials that they were, quote, deeply concerned. This is 5 different attorneys at the Department of Justice that were very concerned about this, about the welfare of children that were separated from their parents as a result of Trump's zero-tolerance policy. Now, this is, of course, before coronavirus. We had found out that these children were not, given beds or toothbrushes or anything like that when they were just given a foil blanket. And that was it. Separated from their parents. There's rampant sexual abuse going on in these camps. And again, that's before COVID. Now that we have COVID, it has spread through these immigrant jails like wildfire, endangering so many people's lives. And so that's all a result of Donald Trump's separation at the border. And so what we learned from this is that they knew about this. The major players, they knew about this, and they didn't actually give a damn. In fact, the answer to the concerns made these 5 attorneys recoil in horror. And by the way, this is back when Jeff Sessions was the Attorney General. He said this, and this is all recorded in shorthand notes. Basically, Jeff Sessions had said in a meeting, we need to take away children. If you care about kids, don't bring them in. We will not give amnesty to people with kids. I mean, that's pretty clear. All right. Now, remember, a lot of these people coming into the country were refugees, which according to international law means that they deserve to get a hearing at least inside to be able to make their case to get asylum in this country. Instead, what we had is a policy that was breaking international law and separated these families on purpose. And by the way, some of these families have still not been reunited. But it gets worse. Now, Rod Rosenstein, also member of the Trump administration, the deputy attorney general at the time, went even further in a second call about a week later, telling these 5 prosecutors that it didn't matter how young the children were, they were still going to be separated and they were still going to be tried individually. I mean, again, remember the stories of toddlers, young children, infants being put into a courtroom without a representation. And being, I guess asking them to make their case. But they're an infant. They can't make a case about anything. They can't even talk. That's what they would do in the Trump administration. He said, though, Rosenstein did, that government lawyers should have not refused to prosecute 2 cases simply because the children were barely more than infants. So you actually had people in the government that looked at this and said, well, you're crazy. What are you doing? You're going to go and do this situation where you're going to bring these children into this courtroom. No, we're not going to have it. We're not going to try these children. That's ridiculous. And Rosenstein said, nope. No, we are going to bring the babies into court. And we're going to try them, and we're going to get rid of them. It's sick. Absolutely sick. And it's on purpose, by the way. See, the Justice Department's top officials, they find, from an investigation by Michael Horowitz, the department's inspector general, those officials were a driving force behind the policy before Mr. Trump abandoned it among global outrage, according to this report and investigation. So the separation of migrant children, he finds, was at the heart of Donald Trump's of the Trump administration's assault on immigrants. So that's it. Though Mr. Sessions, by the way, sought to distance himself from the policy, i.e. lying, I had no idea that we were separating families on purpose. No, that really wasn't the whole point of this. They knew. He and other top law enforcement officials understood that zero tolerance, according to the report, meant that the migrant families would be separated and wanted that to happen because they believed it would be a deterrent to future illegal immigration, which of course it was not. Immigration continued unabated. It didn't do anything other than harm these families, which again were fleeing violence in Central America. In addition, the department's single-minded focus, according to the report, on increasing prosecutions came at the expense of careful and effective implementation of policy, especially with regard to prosecution of family unit adults and resulting child separations. In addition, the draft report also documented some other things as well that had previously not been known. In fact, government prosecutors reacted with alarm at the separation of children from their parents during a secret 2017 pilot program along the Mexican border in Texas. We now have heard of us taking breastfeeding defendant moms away from their infants, one government prosecutor wrote to his superiors. I did not believe this until I looked at the duty log. Yeah, no, they're literally snatching babies from their moms. Literally. In order to separate them. On purpose. Amazing. That is just disgusting. More. Border Patrol officers also missed serious felony cases because they were stretched too thin by the zero tolerance policy, requiring them to detain and prosecute all of misdemeanor illegal entry cases. What happened to going after the bad ones? What happened to actually stopping crime? Looks like you let the real criminals go because you're too busy going after the family that is fleeing violence in Central America. You let the actual criminals, you let the drug dealers, you let the murderers go. In fact, it gets worse. One Texas prosecutor warned that a top Justice Department official in 2018 that, quote, sex offenders were released as a result of this policy. You're letting the sex offenders go. But because we got to, we got to get them immigrants who are not the real criminals. Sickening. Absolutely sickening. There's more. A day after the president retreated, because he got a lot of criticism for this, Mr. Sessions distances his department from the decision, telling CBN News that, quote, We never really intended to separate families and children. Well, that was a lie, an absolute lie, according to the report. It made clear that from the policy's earliest days in a 5-month test along the border in Texas, Justice Department officials understood and encouraged the separation of children as an expected part of the desire to prosecute all undocumented border crossers. It is a hope that this separation will act as a deterrent to parents bringing their children into the harsh circumstances that are present when trying to enter the United States illegally, a Border Patrol official wrote on October 28, 2017, to the U.S. Attorney in New Mexico, according to the draft report. And yet, after the pilot program in Texas ended, the report asserted Mr. Sessions, Mr. Hamilton, and Mr. Rosenstein pushed aggressively to expand the practice across the entire southwestern border with help from prosecutors. By April 2018, Mr. Sessions moved to enact the zero tolerance policy across the entire border with Mexico. Mr. Rosenstein told the Inspector General that Mr. Sessions, quote, understood what the consequences were. They knew. The AG's goal, he said, was to create a more effective deterrent so that everybody would believe they had a risk of being prosecuted. Well, there you go. Which some people, of course, didn't agree with. There were some people with consciences. Surprisingly enough, at first, Kirstjen Nielsen was against it. So she had apparently not raised her hand to enact this policy, but was bullied into it. She eventually did it, defended it, enforced it anyway. And so there you go. All right. Now, in Arizona, there was another official here, Elizabeth Strange, who was the acting U.S. attorney. She actually led what they called a minor rebellion, temporarily declining 6 cases, citing concern about the children. That prompted a rebuke from top Justice Department officials who demanded to know why they would be declining these cases. Because they're children. They're children. That's why. Overall, Mr. Horowitz concluded in the draft report that Sessions and other senior department officials were aware that full implementation of zero-tolerance policy would result in criminal referrals by DA who enter the country illegally with children, and that the prosecution of these family unit adults would result in children being separated from their families. So essentially, they knew, they lied. Sessions publicly lied when he said he didn't know that it would lead to separations, when he said it wasn't their goal. He was lying. He's a liar. Simple as that. They knew what was going to happen. They actively encouraged it. These are not good people. We should not be allowing these people to continue to get away with these crimes against basically humanity. These families are irreparably harmed. Why? Because Donald Trump is a racist and wanted to continue to implement racist policies against Latinos. That's it. That's it. And they, destroyed these lives, destroyed these families for the sake, and I'm talking about Sessions here, they helped destroy these families all for the sake of serving a racist criminal president. No. I think in this situation, we need to not look forward and not backwards. No, we do need to look backwards because this is a humanitarian crime. And these families deserve justice. All right. One more here. All right, I'm going to be real nice about this one. But I'm pretty sure this story is going to get me in trouble anyway. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez recently called out Representative Tulsi Gabbard. So let me give you the details because there's a bit of a story behind this. And I want to make sure that I get all the nuance in this slight beef between these two lawmakers. So recently, you guys know James O'Keefe's basically Project Veritas, which is basically a smear organization, right-wing organization that comes up with edited videos, or they deceptively edit videos in order to try to achieve some sort of legislative aim, whether it be stopping Acorn or going after Planned Parenthood. They've been caught and called out on numerous occasions. So now Veritas, this time, purported to release a video proving that Ilhan Omar's campaign was encouraging voter fraud by harvesting ballots for cash. Now, in Minnesota, ballot harvesting is legal. Okay, so there's no law against it. Now, Tulsi Gabbard says there should be. But in this case, ballot harvesting is legal. And what is it? I mean, it even sounds nefarious in reality, right? But it's not. What it basically allows you to do is it allows certain officials to get permission to collect ballots from people, elderly people, people who are disabled, people who can't get to the polls. They can collect these ballots and then drop them off at polling places. Now, it seems like it's a pretty harmless thing, especially with coronavirus. You would want to make sure that people could vote easier. I mean, again, it makes all the sense in the world, right? But that said, there's a tiny risk of voter fraud. Of course, that's with anything. But in reality, voter fraud, according to studies, is incredibly rare. And so, look, voter fraud itself, for example, happened about 0.00006% of the time, give or take a zero. Okay, so it's incredibly rare, clearly not rampant enough to swing an election. Out of millions and millions of votes, they've had a few cases of documented voter fraud that resulted in prison time. Okay. All right. There you go. That said, this is who Project Veritas is. This is what they do, right? They are well known for deceptively editing videos and making these allegations without any proof that, by the way, gets immediately debunked by real journalists, and we will get to that. But Tulsi Gabbard, Representative Gabbard, decided that she would promote the work of Project Veritas in a tweet that she now deleted in order to help her, I guess, get attention for a piece of legislation that she has co-sponsored with 4 Republicans. So now, in the tweet, she said, Project Veritas offers further evidence for the need to ban ballot harvesting. It's not a partisan issue. It's been abused to help both R&D candidates, including North Carolina and California. Please help by telling your congressional representative to pass our bipartisan bill, H.R. 8285. And so she says it's bipartisan. It's mainly supported by, again, it's got 4 Republican co-sponsors and then Tulsi Gabbard, because she's a Democrat. I wouldn't say that's widely bipartisan, since you are the Democrat, the only one. All right. Now, what is H.R. 8285 anyway? What does it exactly do? Because she says it's for election security, right? In order to, help make sure that our elections are, the integrity of our elections stays, high, or doesn't get undermined by this ballot harvesting. Okay, so let's look at that. I mean, because for me, I would say let's have things like, for example, hand-counted paper ballots. I think that's a great idea. Hand-counted paper ballots, make sure that all of our votes are accountable. Is that in this bill? It is not. It turns out that what it is, it would just, according to the text of the bill, amend the Help America Vote Act of 2002 to prohibit payments under such act to states which permit ballot harvesting and for other purposes. Or she explains later, allowing any individual, including political operatives, to pick up multiple voters' ballots and deliver them to a polling location undermines the integrity of our elections, and so therefore her bill bans such an action. Okay, but where's the evidence? So you say it undermines our elections, and there's a lot of things that undermine our elections. Voter suppression, one, is a big one. And so if you have evidence, well, then that evidence should be cited. But the only evidence she had was the Project Veritas. And so that's where that organization comes in. They released a video accusing campaign workers for Representative Ilhan Omar and Minneapolis City Councilman Jamal Osman of harvesting primary ballots for money and intimidating elderly voters in Minnesota. The video featured footage of Liban Osman's brother, driving around with what appears to be dozens of mail-in ballots while talking about money in politics. So, I watched the video, and I got extremely bored because it didn't show anything. What it was is that you had this guy in this car talking about how it turns out that you need money to run a campaign. Yep. Now, look, I would love for there to be public financing of elections so that you wouldn't need to raise money to run a campaign. But what does this have to do? What does this prove when it comes to ballot harvesting? How did this prove that Ilhan Omar's campaign was paying people to, do fraudulent ballots? There's no evidence. There's no evidence. No evidence of this at all. And it was debunked. On Monday, by the way, Liban told Fox affiliate KMSP that he was, quote, set up and had previously been offered a bribe of $10,000 from Omar Jamal, a community activist and alleged insider for Project Veritas. So, well, there you go. They tried to bribe me, man. $10,000 to do this Sting video. Doesn't this always seem to happen? Of course it does. To get the money, Jamal told Liban to say he was collecting ballots for Omar. Liban says that even though the footage had implicated him, it was edited to do so as he had been collecting mail-in ballots from elderly voters that requested the service through his brother's campaign. So, all right. Look, Project Veritas cannot be trusted. They have doctored so many different videos in order to attack organizations and laws that help increase voter turnout. Now, unfortunately, you guys remember Acorn, right? So this was a group that would basically register people to vote and help them vote, okay? And so, wait. Okay, Project Veritas did this heavily edited video, at one point showing James O'Keefe in a pimp outfit, claiming that, oh no, this is what Acorn's doing, right? It's doing a bunch of illegal stuff. And President Obama, in his infinite wisdom, decided, let's get rid of Acorn. But they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything illegal. But see, that's the power of this right-wing propaganda. And it's really sad to see Tulsi Gabbard defend that organization. Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. Again, the facts do not fit that narrative. And so I'm sorry, what are you thinking? So, okay, where does Tulsi's bill go after voter fraud? Again, it just bans ballot harvesting. Again, what we need more stuff. We need hand-counted paper ballots. We need not a ban on collecting ballots for seniors and the disabled. We need ways to verify election results. Okay? This is not the way to do it. This is not the way to do it. And so she is being called out. Tulsi Gabbard, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, tweets out, "You, along with everyone who amplified this fraudulent story, owe Representative Omar a public apology." So she went after Ilhan Omar and sided with the Republicans and Donald Trump using a fake story. And so I'm not in favor of that. And look, again, it is a fake story. Hennepin County, where this allegedly happened, the attorney said that it received no information of any cases involving so-called ballot harvesting in any elections. So Tulsi Gabbard was wrong on this. She was just wrong on the issue, full stop. That doesn't mean that she's wrong on everything, by the way. I'm not one of those people that are like all or nothing. I look at what you do. Yesterday, she called for the pardoning of Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. I think that's great. I think we should do that. Yes. Pardon Assange. Pardon Snowden. Yes. Make it happen. I agree with her 100% on that. I'm in favor of that. But that said, you got to call the balls and strikes where you see them. You can't just go around legitimizing Project Veritas, giving them credibility, especially when you've seen their long history of attacks against making voting easier and more accessible. You can't do that. So later on, by the way, she kind of apologized to Ilhan Omar. Here's what she said. This issue is not about any of us. It's about voter harvesting. Ilhan, I apologize for referencing the PV story as an example without thoroughly vetting it. Now will you support H.R. 8285 to get rid of voter harvesting, which undermines our democracy? If not, why not? Because you have no evidence. The evidence that you had cited before was not evidence. It was fake doctored videos. There is no legitimacy to banning ballot harvesting. There's just none. There's no evidence of this. And so why would you continue to push that bill? Again, what you're doing, unfortunately, whether she knows it or not, she is helping Republicans to push the narrative of voter fraud involving absentee ballots. She is helping the right wing and going against actual documented evidence to the contrary of Project Veritas' claims. And that is a problem. But see, again, there are some people who are going to defend her on this from the left. And that sucks because, again, there's no evidence of this. And so the facts do not back you up on this. And I just want to say to them, no politician is, above reproach. Understand. Every politician will make mistakes. Every politician will, say or do things that are stupid. And I get that. And they will do and say things that we don't agree with, that we don't like. Bernie Sanders, AOC, there's no, every politician does something that we don't like and we should push up against if they do. Fair enough. But it seems that some people who defend Tulsi Gabbard, and I'm just saying some people, some of her supporters take it too far and won't admit that she does anything wrong when she is clearly in the wrong on some issues. And so that's the problem here. Okay, some criticisms of AOC, Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard are right, and some are disastrously wrong. You've got to stay in objective reality where the facts are. Look, I've defended Tulsi Gabbard, I've defended Jill Stein, okay? And I've also hit them both on different issues. Because again, you have to stay objective, okay? And we have to understand as well that politicians are not perfect and we need to continue to push them in our direction. But there is a problem here that some people do not do the same thing when it comes to certain politicians. And you could probably find some people with Bernie Sanders in the same thing, but you can find a lot of people on Tulsi Gabbard's side that do the same. They're unwilling or unable to criticize her when she actually does something wrong. And that I find is a problem. And in this case, she got it wrong. She got it wrong. Now, if you check replies to this AOC tweet, you're going to see a pylon, not only from right-wingers, a lot of right-wingers, but also some members of the left that are attacking AOC by, for correctly pointing out where she did wrong. Now, they don't address that, okay? But instead, we'll go in unrelated tangents about how terrible Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is and how terrible Ilhan Omar is. And how not progressive they are. It doesn't really help your case when you don't even address it and don't even admit that, yeah, no, I like Tulsi, but she got it wrong. There is no evidence. This is a bad look. It just kind of makes me wonder about some members of her base and what their motivations really are. All right. Like I said, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this. So that's it. Expect about 23 negative videos attacking me because, that's what's going to happen. Such it is. It is what it is, I guess. All right, anyway. Thank you guys for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Also, become a channel member if you can, and all those different things. So, a lot of ways to help us out. Thank you all. Love you. And we will not be doing any debate coverage tonight. And so, I'm sorry about that, but I'm just not feeling great. So, anyway, thank you. We'll see you guys maybe tomorrow. I'm not sure what's happening. I might have to. I might be building out my computer to try to do the show on. So, all right. Anyway, thank you guys. Love you, and see you guys later on. Remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you later.
Mike Pounds.
There are some whores in this house.
Yosemite. Thailand.
Tighten up my meat.
Wait, you're getting nervous, man.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.